Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 61 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. Today we're talking about mental well-being for the entire month of March at day 2 of the mental well-being. And we're going to talk about beliefs today. Now, I could probably talk about and have a conversation about beliefs for, a week or on a definitely ongoing basis, because it's an area of life that most people never even think about or consider. And that if you do, it has the ability to, number one, help your mental well-being in a lot of ways. And I'll do a write-up in that under Guide 17 of the Get Up and Go Challenge private Facebook group. But I just want to talk about a couple things. And then I really want to focus in on when you identify a belief that isn't serving you anymore, because they served you at the time that they were formed. But most of our beliefs are formed when we're children based on the experiences we have or what someone in authority or that we consider an authority says to us or about us, and then that becomes one of our beliefs, and we just pile on evidence to support that belief then for the rest of our lives. Problem is, sometimes those beliefs, especially the opinions and judgment of other people, may be absolute nonsense or BS, as I like to say in many occasions. So we want to talk about, and I'm going to share a 7-step process on how to change a belief. Now, you don't have to use all the steps, but the more you use and the more you tweak them and make them your own, the more powerful and the faster you'll change what we call limiting belief. A limiting belief, and I think we'll probably spend a whole day on limiting beliefs later this month. But for today, we just want to know beliefs. What are they? Where do they come from? And how can we change them? And I'll do in the write-up how it impacts our mental well-being. I think we all know. We've all had an experience with this. Our beliefs are things that are formed. They're a firm thought that we have over and over again, or they're formed when we have a significant emotional event in our life or a trauma. In trauma, we form a lot of beliefs and thoughts and feelings about ourselves, about the world, about other people. We have beliefs because they give us a framework for viewing the world and seeing the world through the lens of what's right for us and what isn't right for us. Challenge is in that sometimes we form beliefs when we were really, really young, and they were based on an experience that we had, but over time, they're no longer true for us. The beliefs I formed when I was under 5 years old, a couple of them are empowering and still good for me. Treat other people the way you want to be treated, get along with other people, be kind. Those are all empowering, and I will never give up those. But there's other beliefs about what we can and cannot do, what we are and are capable of. I remember when I was young, I guarantee I had ADHD and dyslexia when I was young, although they didn't diagnose it or call it that back then. That was a long, long time ago, decades ago. And I had a hard time. Number one, my vision was really, really bad, and I didn't even know it until I was 11 years old. So that caused challenges along the way. I didn't know that you could see birds and planes and stuff in the sky. That's how bad my vision was. And then once I got corrective lenses back then, it opened up a whole new world. I didn't even know there were you could see distinct leaves on trees. It was really interesting. And so I couldn't literally and physically see very well. So I formed all kinds of beliefs about I wasn't very smart. I couldn't read very well in my mind. But it was all really because I didn't know that I couldn't see very well. I don't know how I made it through the grade school screenings where they're supposed to test your vision and stuff, because my vision was terrible. So I formed a lot of beliefs back then, before I was 5, before I was 10, before I was, 11, that I carried with me for a lot of years until I realized that I had the power to look at those and change those beliefs because they were no longer true for me. And we get and adopt a lot of beliefs like that from people we love and care about, from people we consider authorities, especially our parents, our relatives, aunts, uncles, teachers, friends. That's why some of the stuff that's going on in schools and things right now, and all the craziness and crazy things they're trying to teach kids, is so wrong and so scary if you're paying attention. So how do we change a belief? I got a little 7-step process. I've used this literally thousands of times in my life, and I still continue to use it and actually it just happened yesterday. There was an event in my family that triggered old feelings and old thoughts and old beliefs and old feelings of anxiety. And I don't consider myself an anxious person, but I realized when I was laying in bed last night, actually kind of doing this, that is what happened. Something happened, and it was just an old trigger. And it wasn't even from the original trigger producer. It was a new person creating this that did use the trigger, and then I responded to it. So I was like, all right, I got something to work on today with this belief, because that belief is no longer true for me. So why would I respond in ways that actually didn't work that well in the past for me? Why would I want to continue to do that? So I'm actually using this process today right along with you, because I realized this morning when I woke up that that's what happened. When it was happening, I knew I didn't feel right. I felt upset. And whenever I feel upset or nervous or anxious or doubtful or worried or fearful, anything I consider a negative emotion, I ask myself, what's going on here? What's really going on here? Because a lot of times it's just something from the past that tries to sneak in and pile itself onto, we talked about emotions all last month, an emotion or a thought or a belief to add more references to that. I wanted to think evidence. References to that, to help my subconscious think that it's true and how I should respond in the future. But when I notice those, I want to knock those out. So this is how I do it. Number one, I notice or observe the behavior or the feeling or the belief that's contributing to that feeling. And I look at that belief and I say, okay, is this serving me anymore or not? And if it isn't serving me, then I know I want to change it. And so I choose a belief that I know I want to change, or that isn't empowering me or getting me what I want or moving me in the direction I want my life to go. If you're not sure what belief to choose, usually we know right away, because it's something that is creating negative results or negative emotions and negative feelings and negative repeated experiences in our life. And so we know, yeah, that belief's not true anymore for me. If you don't know what to use, ask yourself, do I ever feel not good enough? Do I ever compare myself to others? Do I ever get my feelings hurt by something someone says to me? Those are like basic ones that lead to an underlying belief from our childhood that we want to go ahead and change. And almost everybody's got them. Very few people 100% in every situation, all the time, in every experience they have, feel 100% confident, feel like they're good enough or they deserve whatever it is that they want, etc. So it's a pretty easy one to attack and change and work on. Then write down why it is that you want to change that belief. What's in it for you to change that belief? Think about the things that it's cost you or is costing you now or cost you in the past. Think about the things that will cost you in the future if you don't change that belief. This is a very similar process to changing habits. We all have habits, right? But sometimes we have good habits and sometimes we have bad habits. And we want to reinforce our good habits and change our bad habits. Same exact thing. Beliefs are an automatic habitual way of thinking about something that don't necessarily serve us, but they did at the time they were created again, but they don't necessarily serve us now. Then what we want to do in step 3 is, after we've written it down and written down all the things, I'm going to say one of the fastest, easiest way to really see something and look at it is to write it down. Because sometimes, or say it out loud, when we write things down and say them out loud, we realize actually how ridiculous they are. And really, if we write it down and then read it out loud to ourselves, we're like, oh my God, that's crazy. I learned that trick in, probably in school, but I used it in corporate America. With every email or every communication I was ever going to write, I not only wrote it, but then I read it out loud to myself before I sent it. So I made sure that something didn't sound weird or could be taken the wrong way. Because a lot of times our written communication, that's why texting is killing communication. It's so easy to misinterpret what someone says without the nonverbal cues, without the tone, etc. Number 4, work to create a new and empowering belief, a more empowering belief than what you've got. It might not be perfect the first one you pick, but you're going to try it on for size through the rest of the steps, and then you're going to know how it feels after a day or two, and if you need to tweak or change it. I would say I need to tweak and change almost every one of my first thought improved beliefs, because it's not right yet, or perfect. They're never perfect, right? They're ever changing and evolving, but it doesn't get me the results that I want. Number 5, visualize your life in detail with the new belief in your life. So when we're thinking of one we want to get rid of and the reasons why, we think of all the bad things that have happened. with visualization, we think of all the good things and positive impact that can happen now and in the future, 5 years, 10 years down the road by having this different belief. Every day, and this is one of those supercharger success tips that most people don't do, but every morning, as soon as you wake up and right before you go to bed, repeat and write it down if you're so inclined and say it out loud, the new belief, the new empowering belief, because that will help to reinforce it. And people always ask me, well, how long do I have to do that? Well, until it doesn't have, when you don't need to do it anymore, because it's just automatically, inherently a part of you, your identity, your thoughts and beliefs now. We're just taking a lot of the beliefs they're running little programs in the subconscious and bringing them into the conscious and making sure we're putting them back in the subconscious in a way that empowers us. And then I say at night, what I do when I really want to change something fast and I want to make sure it stays changed, is I write down 3 things I'm going to do tomorrow to reinforce my new belief. So I've done this with a lot of different emotions and things. I used to be frustrated all the time and stressed out in one of my businesses. And I realized it was because my definition of frustration made it so that it was super easy for me to feel frustrated. I was frustrated all the time. If anything wasn't how I thought it should be right now, then I would get frustrated. Wow. Talk about a belief that's setting you up for failure. I just believed that everything should, and I didn't realize that it was the underlying belief that was causing me to experience frustration all the time. I just believed that my belief was the way things should be. I thought everybody should work as hard as me and think like me. And I'm like, where does that even come from, right? Why do we ever think something like that? Because when I say it out loud, it sounds so ridiculous that I don't even know how I came up with that belief. And sometimes people will teach you and coach you to go back and figure out where it came from and resolve that. Go ahead and do that if you want. That takes a lot more time than just fixing it and replacing it with something else. I had a conversation with a coaching student, I think day before yesterday, about they thought they could just get rid of the old one and not have to replace it with anything. It was just gone. And I'm like, I guarantee that within the next little bit of time, you're going to see that belief pop up again that you think is gone, because unless you replace it with something, nature, it creates a vacuum when we let go of a limiting belief, or we let go of one belief if we don't consciously create another belief to fill it in. I did that with what I call the primary question. I learned it from Tony Robbins. I realized after my sudden cardiac arrest that my primary question was WTF. And I used the same process to change my primary question. And I actually had to go through I went through several iterations before I came up with the primary question that I still use today, because it works and it fits for me. But I had to go through this process probably 10 times till I got the right feeling associated with the new question. It's the same thing with a belief. Till I got the right feeling for me with the new belief, and I knew that it would just go in my subconscious. And that's now how I filter everything, right? And it's a much more empowering belief or question, right? We speak to ourselves in questions. So what's our action item today? Our action item today is to think of or notice. Usually we just can notice it, and that's the one we know that we can just do right now. Use this process. Apply this process to one of your beliefs that you would like to change, and then start changing it. If you're like my coaching client and you think you can just do this once and it's changed forever, great, try that out. But then make sure that you're paying attention to your results going forward to verify that it's actually changed, or if you need to get another belief. Because I'm waiting for the phone call from saying, okay, I had this experience happen today, and I'm going to know right off like a light bulb. Yeah, that's because you thought you just let go of that. And it wasn't even someone else's belief. It was just someone in their environments. And when someone in your environment has a belief and you realize that you're using the same language as them, and that's become a underlying subconscious belief of your own, if you don't replace that with the more empowering one, that one's going to sneak in and keep coming up, because that's what our subconscious does. It serves us evidence so that we feel right, so that we feel justified, so that we feel like we're in alignment with who our identity and our beliefs are. All right. Any questions? Ask. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow. I'm going to tell you to have fun with this, because it seems like it's hard, but once you get this process down and you start doing it, whenever stuff that pops up that you don't like the way you feel, watch how fast your beliefs change. And when your beliefs change, they're in your subconscious. when they change, your life will start changing in miraculous ways, and you'll be like, wow, I wonder how that happened. And then you can just know that it's because you decided to think differently, to believe things that empowered you and served you, and that impacts how you experience the world, how you experience everything. All right, have an awesome day. If I can help you in any way, ask. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow. Bye.